Hey guys, what's going on? Make sure you lock into this episode because we are going to get into the Extraman origin story. If you are British, if you are black, you are going to want to pay attention to this one. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, I'm a meathead gamer, probably just like you. I understand the importance of playing Stellar Blade, but I also understand the importance of being in a squat rack. So I got the perfect programs for you. Hammerhead, Shogun, the Tenacity Strength Hypertrophy Method, all of these designed to get you bigger, to get you stronger, and to be like one of these characters on Stellar Blade that don't look like one of these ugly ass monsters. So hit me up at Tenacity Strong and get a copy. It will do nothing but help you achieve your physical goals, and you'll get better at your gaming goals. Because when you look good, you play good. All right? Y'all have a good one.
Streamcast.
Yo guys, what's going on? It's Black Amora and I'm here with Glen and Jermaine, two great guys from Kindred Comics. What's going on, guys?
How you doing, man? You good?
Oh yeah, we're here. We are here.
Good.
Cracking on.
Yes, there's always work to be done. So you guys are from Kindred Comics, like I said, the creators of Extraman. And if you don't know who Extraman is, this is a black British superhero. That's something that we've needed more on in this world. So why don't you two let us know a little bit more about yourselves and how you came to be good friends and co-owners of this brand?
Well, we were friends for like a decade before we started collaborating on Extraman. Just because I used to be in a group that was heavily centered around dance, and Glenn has obviously been within the dance world for some time. So our paths naturally crossed, and we had mutual friends, and kind of went to the same church, and all those type of things. So yeah, kind of just a natural organic friendship first, and then discovered that each of us had a love for comic books and Marvel, DC, Superman in particular. And so yeah, it was just like a natural just friendship. And then it was pandemic times, we were in communication, just kind of locked away working on our creative stuff, and that's around the time that I came up with Extraman. And then after getting Glenn's feedback over like a couple months or whatever, I was like, do you want to kind of like, obviously I know you have a huge appreciation for the comic book world, so do you want to kind of collaborate and write on this project with me? Since if you think about the major comic books, there's always like that kind of team where you've got that even if Stan Lee created the character, he's got a writer there or a co-writer there or artist or whatever. So I just kind of harken back to the time when good creators would collaborate, and just thought that although I could have obviously done it myself, it would be great to have Glenn, since he's an ideas man like myself. And yeah, just kind of organically just blossomed from there.
Very
Yeah,
sick.
I feel like it's one of them things as well. Once you find something you're that passionate about and you speak about it with someone that shares that, the excitement just helps, because then your next thing is when you do come up with ideas. It's great when you're working on something that you love, but it's so nice when you want to phone someone and tell them about it. And I think once we found that, it was like every time we thought of something, we were calling each other every 5 minutes or sending a text message or like just sharing something like, oh, this would be sick if we did this. And it's like once you start rolling with that, I think we found quite quickly like how things progressed and just like how it started to evolve and how each other's ideas benefited like our own workflow, because it just kept sparking each other to keep being creative and creating new things. And it's been like that ever since. So yeah, it's crazy.
That's sick. It seems like you two have natural chemistry, and it goes all the way back to like when you mentioned Jermaine dancing. That was important in both of your, I guess, your lives.
Yeah.
So what type of dance were you both doing, and were you doing the same type? How did you guys actually meet? Was it through a mutual? Tell me about the first encounter between you two.
That's man, I can't even remember that first encounter. I couldn't even
We're
tell
talking
you.
decades ago, bro.
Yeah. I think what it was within like just the industry and like with music, dance, talent competitions, I think there was a lot of like, everyone was backing each other back then. There was a lot of competitions about, but it was one of the things you'd see the same people at these comps. So
Yeah.
you'd see the same people at talent competitions. You'd see the same people that were, trying out for the next thing, and dancers would be in certain people's music videos, and you'd want to get the best crew and stuff like that. And I think once you see each other a few times, like Jermaine's like music group were heavily influenced, and they were dancers, so in their music videos they would do dance breaks, and naturally like we would want to learn those dance routines and stuff like that. So there was an appreciation for each other's artistry and like talent, no matter what, like before that's happened. So we were kind of like I know I was a fan of Jermaine and his group before we were friends. So once we were friends, it was like you start asking the questions, oh, when did you do that? Like I want to hear songs you haven't released, you know what I mean? And then once we figured out we're both like super into the superhero thing, again, it just, as any friendship does, like you have the thing that like, you vibe with, and you get that kind of thing. And yeah, it's grown over time, like just like I said, decades of talking and friendship, and birthdays and stuff. It just all kind of like merges. And now, like even thinking back, I don't remember the time where it was like, oh, me and Jermaine are best mates now. Like,
yeah.
Just grew into that. Like it just because we spent more time together, we shared things. We went to cinema. Obviously, as the MCU became bigger and those films came out, there was more to talk about, more to connect to, and and it's been like that ever since. Obviously, once we got into the Kindred Comics stuff, we speak pretty much every day now, because this is life now.
This is business.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, the fact that the pandemic has often ruined a lot of lives. I think it's really good that we can find a little bit of positivity between you two who have come together and built this brand from the ground up. So when it comes to like comics, you both have obviously mentioned the heavy inspirations and joy from that. Do you remember your first ever comic book?
Oh, first ever? No, I don't remember. The first thing is, I found my like old comics from when I was young that my mom had kept, and even just seeing some of the covers of like some of the X-Men ones and Amazing Spider-Man, like they came back straight away as soon as I started seeing the pictures. Because obviously back then, if you had a certain comic, I would like draw them or like try and copy the pictures from it and stuff like that. So the image is stuck with you a lot longer now. I think things are a lot more kind of like disposable, just kind of like internet stuff is now. Do you know what I mean? It's a 24-hour news cycle. But back then you had one book and that was the only book you had until you had the pocket money for the next one in X amount of weeks. So you just spent a lot more time reading the same one. I had like Sonic the Hedgehog comics, and like I'm a big Deadpool Z fan, so like I had a couple of the mangas. I remember like I'd borrow it from Dulwich Library, had a Dragon Ball manga, and I remember
God, same.
I just never put that back for time. Like I had that book for ages. And I had a few friends at school that would like introduce me to really random books. Like there was one that was called like Mega Dragon and Tiger, which was like a manga anime type comic, and me and my friend would always try and find that, but you could never find it anywhere. So there was like 2 copies, and that was the ones we read over and over again. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I had so many I was collecting them over the course of my 5 years at secondary school. So every time I went to the newsagents, would buy comic books, as well as obviously the write-ons and the word ups and the blah blah blah. Obviously, I'm at my age right now, but like those are the golden age where you could just get it from the newsagents, like proper legit comics. And I even bought like my X-Men first, obviously the biggest selling comic ever, Jim Lee X-Men #1. I bought that at like a train station.
Wow.
Just saw that just on the stand. I thought, okay, cool. Like, and at the time, obviously, you don't even understand. Like, you're just young, you don't even understand the value. But obviously, the value in it for me was just the art and the stories and the characters and the colors and whatever else. So, yeah, like I actually had to give a whole bunch of comic books away recently, just because I just didn't have the capacity to. It's like when you moved out my mum's house like over a decade ago. My mum was like, "What we doing with these?" Like I ain't got no space for these, so
I have them in the house.
Yeah. So now I kind of stick to just digital, but because it saves space. But yeah, the first one, it's probably X-Men something, or like it's either X-Men or Spider-Man easily.
Let's get into your favorite superheroes. I usually ask my guests, about their top 5 games, but because this is a comic book special, what are your top 5 superheroes?
Top five. Batman, Spider-Man. Top five, you know. Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. I want to say Iron Man and.
So hard.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about who I've been scrolling through recently.
Yeah, like Gambit's in my top 5. I've been a super fan of Gambit and his style for time. I've got a lot of like, I used to wear t-shirts. I used to have a belt buckles with the playing cards and stuff on. So I would match most of those as Jermaine, but Gambit's definitely in my top 5. And obviously, it's been a bit of a new Gambit trend going on at the moment, so that's been good for me.
Like every third reel is a Gambit meme at this point.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of
Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman for sure. Up there, Gambit. I'm a big fan of the Flash as well.
I love the Flash.
Yeah, big fan of the Flash, and I've always liked different versions of it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I've even liked the TV show, but as well as some of the obviously animated movies and stuff like that. I just think Flash has been up there for sure.
Yeah, I'm just going to say Extraman for number 5.
I like that. That's
headline for sure.
But yeah, it's important to see where the creatives of today come from and what's pulled them from just, I guess, absorbing stuff as a consumer and as a fan to going, hey, I can make this myself. I'm ready to be the next generation and be what the next kids are going to be looking up to. So let's get into that with you guys with Extraman. Jermaine, you mentioned that it was your idea. Tell me more about where the full body concept for Extraman came through, because I'm a big fan of like the design. And you mentioned like a lot of the tech inspo from Batman and Iron Man, and I can see that in there. There's a lot of like high-tech, futuristic, aesthetics there. So, tell me more about like Extraman and how he became real.
Well, I was playing, rewind back to the pandemic. I was playing a lot of PlayStation, and I was playing Miles Morales, and obviously swinging through New York. I just thought to myself, this is so incredible how someone can be playing this when it all came from one man's idea, and he had the bravery to walk into that Marvel Studios and be like, I want to create someone called Spider-Man and blah blah blah. And even though he had people saying that it was a rubbish idea at the time, like, he followed through, and now we're here like decades later. He's one of, if not the biggest, next to Batman, biggest superhero in the world. So I just thought to myself, you just have to start somewhere. So literally put down the control, picked up the iPad, and it was kind of like, I didn't stop until he was like realized. And it's funny because the design of his suit and his logo and his name and a lot of what you see now was the first idea. Like, I didn't like, there was no cape or anything like that. Like, he didn't have no different weapon. It was just like the first idea that we came up with. So yeah, man, it's just an organic thing. I just let it kind of just flow out. Obviously, I wanted him to have the tech. At first, the first picture I ever drew of him was, I actually traced a picture of Batman, but it was just like the same outfit, but like he had like an arm cannon and stuff like that. But it looked similar to what it is now. But he always had like the both stuff. He always had Bolivia and like the red panels and stuff like that. So it was what you see today was the first idea. But obviously through developing it, Glen and I had to obviously nerf some stuff. In the beginning, he could teleport, and Glen was like, "Nice, OP." So we kind of just made it so he's just a bit more. I mean, it was always street level, but it's just a delicate balance that we have to obviously toe in just making sure that he's worth fighting. Otherwise, we didn't want just to make him Superman who can now transverse dimensions and stuff like that. It's just gotten so out of hand. So we really kind of keep that in mind. And the fact that everyone's favorite is usually Spider-Man, and all he does is swing and punch people really hard, and you get me, like, he's got this set of 6 powers and that's it. and yet we've gotten so much amazing stories from him. So yeah, we kind of keep that in mind all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a very intricate balancing act that you mentioned towards the end there about not making your main character OP, because you do have that Superman problem where, like, yeah, I mean, he's the best, but at the same time, it's very difficult to tell a story where you can believe he's in danger.
Exactly.
You kind of need to retcon a lot of stuff, which, you know, you're gonna upset one bunch of fans, or you're gonna have to make a super villain out of nowhere, which might upset another bunch of fans. So yeah, it's quite interesting that, you know, Glenn, you were like, teleportation is like, yeah, we gotta get rid of that. So are you kind of like the first barrier of like, okay, let me sound everything out and then we'll filter out stuff that maybe isn't conducive to the overall story? Or
Yeah,
how does that dynamic work?
Yeah, like we've been very good at, like, since the beginning, because obviously Jermaine came up with the idea, like the suit, everything was kind of done, and he had a set of skills and powers. So our first sit down, even some of the villains and stuff were already kind of like created, and the ideas behind some of their powers and stuff. And it was funny because we hadn't fully said, oh, this is going to be our business, what we're doing, but we sat down, and my natural thing was, oh, I can't do that, because if you could do that, then this doesn't matter anymore. And it's like you start to realize what powers matter and how they use them that becomes interesting. Do you know what I mean? It's like he has this power, but if he can just teleport, then all these cool ways that he can travel using his bow staff and like how he traverses the city is gone, because he'll just teleport everywhere. So you lose what we loved about Spider-Man, is those moments of like him swinging through the city and those like very athletic images, and like they're so iconic. Because as soon as you can teleport, you're losing this, like, this visual, like, that you can be using
Iconography,
icon stuff. And it's like, you just draw a picture of here, and it's like, okay, so the next scene is here, so we just did a little blippy looking thing, and then he's here, and it's like that. We didn't want that sort of thing. And that comes down to all the powers, even with villains and stuff like that. You want to give them, you want to know what the weaknesses are, so then that's how you create great villains, because they have the thing that he doesn't. So then it's like, how does he defeat this person? How does he use, or does he use Journey's mind? And they like, how do they think up the idea to defeat them? How do they creative? And maybe they need help from someone else. And that's how you then introduce other characters going forward, because you then fill the gaps with more characters. If one guy's got super speed, super strength, teleports, and does all the things, no one else matters. Like, we always have this joke at the moment of like the Flash and stuff. Flash has got to the point where he can run so fast, he reverses time, and everything stops. So basically nothing should ever happen. No one should ever get hurt or ever get hit. So it doesn't actually matter anymore. So now you should just, the book should just open, and then it should just say credits, and then it should just end. Nothing's ever going to happen.
I don't think that was so well.
Yeah, so we don't want that. Do you know what I mean? We want to make sure that he's figuring out things, and his skills are evolving. We can add things as we go, and maybe for a certain mission you might get a gadget that helps with a certain thing, but that's what lets us be creative and kind of like figuring it out, because sometimes it is hard to figure out how to beat the guy. And so we're kind of doing the hero job, discussing like, no, he'd have to go in through the window and do this, but he can't do that because the guy would sense him through this. But okay, so maybe Journey gives him this, and that's how the discussions become exciting for us. And sometimes it's hard to figure it out, but that's the kind of the point. Do you know what I mean? Because when you do, you feel like you struck gold. Do you know what I mean? Because we go, oh, so we know when the reader's reading it and they're trying to figure it out, like, I don't know how he's going to beat this guy. And then they get that feeling we get of like, nah, that's sick, because I didn't think he was going to do that. Do you know what I mean? They come up with a whole different thing. So, you need to let the audience have their moments as well. Otherwise, you read and go, well, why didn't he just run really fast? Or why didn't he just teleport into the room and take them out? Like, they're getting annoyed at you for not using the power you told him that he had in the first place. So yeah, we avoid that as much as possible.
And it also gives Journey an opportunity to shine and figure stuff out. Whilst we're dealing with a Nightwing, Daredevil type hero, Spider-Man type hero on the ground, she's obviously on an Iron Man, Batman level with how to solve problems. Obviously she's got the tech and all the types of things, but I just wanted to have a black female character that people could look towards outside of Storm, because that seems to be the only one that we really have that's prominent. I wanted to give the little girls something to be like, cool, it's not just this, although his name's on the front, he wouldn't exist without her, kind of thing. So it's not even kind of thing. His whole thing would just be like non-existent without Journey. So that's something that even in the first two issues, you really established that. And I was reading with a close friend of mine recently, and he got that immediately. He really understood that, okay, so she's running the show basically, and he's kind of like her muscle to a certain degree when it comes to fighting crime. She obviously knows where the problems are at majority of the time first, but he's got the physical prowess to execute based on the tech that she's given him. So yeah, it's a really it gives her the opportunity to shine as well, since she's, you know, the smartest woman in the world. And even with that, we have to make her really smart, but at the same time vulnerable enough to be missing things. Otherwise she'd be omnipresent and she would be, you know, Dr. Manhattan. Do you get me? So and she would be able to turn back time and do all the things. So even though she's the most, you know, the smartest woman in the world, she still has to be so busy and so preoccupied with things and have human problems and human issues and human vulnerabilities that allow problems to still happen for them to solve together. So yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yep.
I feel like one thing I really picked up on was how much you two care about this world, this universe that you've created, and that really shines through. Because I feel like it's very easy for creators to kind of just like, you know, like milk the cash cow. And you sometimes see this through other mediums with superheroes where it's like, well, they don't really care about how the good guy beats the bad guy, as long as the good guy beats the bad guy, so we can sell the next movie. And you know, those dreaded online, you know, conversations about, well, that shouldn't have happened because that's not canon, and then this and this. But you know, the fact that you two are actually actively thinking, you're putting yourselves in the minds of the characters, going, oh, that's a limitation, or we need that limitation to make this story make sense. Okay, but we've established this limitation here like 5 issues ago. How is that going to, you know, equate to the guy beating the evil guy when the time comes? And you have to play within the rules that you have self-imposed. And I think that's very cool. I think the stories that I've enjoyed the most are centered about that, like almost puzzles, but with crime fighting.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I can't commend you enough for that.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, it takes maturity though, because we obviously do want our superhero to be the best, innit? Like we want him to be able to solve all the problems and everything like that. But it's also realizing that solving the problems comes with like a bit of struggle sometimes, you know, and it has to, otherwise your strength is not proven. Like how can you prove power if there's no, you know? And if you do look at the two most famous superheroes in the world, Batman, who's a human being wearing a suit, and the other one is a gangly teenager being Spider-Man, it's like both of them will die very easily in a battle with a lot of like your OP superheroes, you know. And it's sometimes it's not like Batman's obviously got the prep time argument all the time, and super fast and smart and blah blah blah. But at the same time, when you almost, you know, down to when we talk about grass tacks, it's very they're gonna die, you know, almost going up against, you know, Omni-Man and people like that. So people like to argue that types of things. So we've had to have a great deal of maturity and be like, it's okay. Let them believe that he will always be defeated, because obviously there's gonna come a time when that's not going to be the case. And also, it's not just him. You know, Journey is there. She's going to be the one that is going to make it so they don't need prep time, and she's got the smarts to figure out the problem and stuff like that. So you're never fighting just him. There's obviously going to be times in the story where you're just fighting just him or just her. But you know, give it time, and we're going to color in all those little corners to make sure that everyone's seeing this dynamic duo, so to speak, from all the different angles.
I feel like it almost depends on what you want with the property that you're putting out there, right? If you want to make the best superhero, you can do that. That's a very different, you know, journey. for someone. You know, Superman was, I feel, very much that mind process of like just making the best, the strongest, nothing can beat him. And then they, you know, they made up a weakness, and then they made up a way for him to beat that weakness. So yeah, but I feel like if you want that, you are almost sacrificing the engaging story, the drama, and the suspense of, like, for example, if you brought when you brought up with Batman, when you see him with Bane in The Dark Knight Returns, and he can't beat Bane in a fair, you know, in a fair fight. So the whole thread, the person viewing is thinking, how is Batman going to overcome this villain? If you want that, then you have to kind of think about it more intricately and, you know, three-dimensional, and have that story. And, you know, like what you said with Journey, it's not just Extraman. It is them as a pairing, and that's gonna come with its own weaknesses, with its own cons. And again, that's something that you have chosen to go with this path. And for me personally, that's the more interesting one, like the better story. I mean, look, we were all kids on the playground arguing who would win in a fight, Superman or Batman. I'm sure I was arguing who would win, Goku or Superman. You know, at this day and age,
people on TikTok arguing.
Still to this day.
To this day.
Yeah, all the time. We come across that stuff all the time, and it's like, that's another thing. There's a lot of indie comics and indie superheroes, and like, you know, we'll see the picture of him. Oh, have you seen this one? It looks quite cool, and then we'll hear the like guy talking about it, and it's basically every power in the world. He's a god destroying ultimate one punch man's Goku type person. You're just like, okay, but like, we know that in order to have longevity, like, people need to fall in love with the character and also the stories, and that takes a certain amount of like realness. Do you know what I mean? Like, people, the reason Spider-Man is, like we said, what probably the biggest, is because as teenagers we related to the high school problems. Do you know what I mean? Obviously we loved the cool superhero stuff, but it was the teenager that we loved. That it was the teenager that made us go, oh yeah, because, you know, your girlfriend wants you to take her to prom, but you can't because you're late for the thing. And it's like, all them things make it, you know. So now we're doing the same thing, but, you know, it's a married couple, and, you know, they've got a relationship and a life, and they're going through, you know, the loss of their son in this, and it's like they're dealing with a real life trauma that's hard, you know, and it takes its toll, and its mental health and its disability. Like, there's a lot of real life stuff that we're dealing with, so we have to look at it from, you know, the real perspective, rather than just, we can solve this with a superpower, or solve this with a gadget, or, you know, some science our way through the situation. And yeah, that's easy to do, and you can get carried away with stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Same with fights. You get carried away with drawing the most ultimate fight, and then you look at it and you realize, oh, you shouldn't be able to do this. If you did that, the building, like, we're very real with like setting it up to make sure that everything that's happening is, you know, happening in the right way, and it's growing. There's time for him to, like we said, you know, we can color them corners later on over time. Do you know what I mean? And he can find a new ability or something, and that can be exciting when we get there, rather than it's all there at the beginning. What's the point?
Exactly.
You know?
What is there to look forward to?
Yeah, sure. Same with, you know, that's why Goku and Dragon Ball Z is my favorite. It's my favorite show ever, and it's a lot of people's. But it was the thing of like, he wasn't Super Saiyan for ages. Yeah. But then when that moment happened, it felt like the best thing ever. And then you got to see how that changed him. And then over time, it's like, oh my God, there's a next level to it. And it's like, that's what feeds it, those moments, because you're now going to try and wait for the next thing. And like, you're looking for the excitement and what bad is going to be able to defeat this new thing, and what do they have, and all you know, all the villains in the Dragon Ball Z series all have transformations, and they change and they evolve, and that means their abilities adapt, which means you have to learn how to beat them in a different way. And that's what made it interesting, even though the show is just like fights. But that's why it was interesting, because the transformations and that made it different. It made it go, oh, how does he now beat this person with this? Because how does he becomes strong enough? How, you know, how do the friends help? How do different people do that stuff? And, you know, we want to make sure it has that sort of lifespan. You know, that show's been going since the early 80s and whatnot. Do you know what I mean? It's still to this day people's favorite show. So that just shows that it's because the characters have, you know, embedded themselves into people because of those things. So that's what we want.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I feel like with the first issue of Extraman, I think what you did there was you pinpointed points of relatability and resonance, like you said, with the whole disability and the loss of the child. That is stuff that is really, really real, and people. There is no textbook on how to deal with that, right? There's no right or there are several wrong ways, but like there is no one, hard and fast way of dealing with trauma and tragedy like that. And I feel like being able to almost not turn that into a positive, but find the positive in that, bringing people together, I think that's really powerful as well. And with the representation of Journey, I think that's very important. I think representation is something you don't realize how important it is until you haven't had it for a while. With Supercell now on Netflix, that's not something I realized I needed until I saw it, because all of these, these live action superhero series, a lot of them are based in America. Some of them are based in Japan or Korea, but like there's not a lot of like stories based on the UK, which has a massive hotbed of creatives. I mean, I'm talking to two right now, so it's like when you see stuff that is like relatable, and like even little things in like dialogue where they'll say in it, and like they'll use certain words where you're like, oh yeah, we used to talk like that. Like little things like that will just make your eyes glint a bit. And I feel like that's something that you've got really nailed on the head with Extraman. And I love that. I think we will see. No, of course, you're welcome. I think we'll see more people trying to I guess follow in your footsteps, because they all need to see that first spark of inspiration. And I think this is it.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that like making a superhero that looks like me wasn't just important for my own, like, oh, I've never had a superhero outside of Black Panther or the Black Power Ranger or whatever. And even when Power Rangers came out, like I instantly gravitated towards the black one. And back then, it's not like I thought, oh, for any type of political reason, it was just like cool. Like I can just relate to that one the most. And he danced and all the rest of it. So it was just like, wow, like I am Zach Morris. So is Zach Morris? Yeah. And I've got nephews that I have seen, like, transition from babies and fall in love with. My youngest is into Turtles now, which I'm an 80s baby, so that was my thing as well. And the oldest nephew is heavily into Spider-Man, but I noticed the difference when Miles Morales came out. He could see himself, and it was just like, now that's the favorite, and Extraman is his favorite now. But Miles was so important for him in terms of the representation, and just in terms of for females. I obviously have aunties, uncles, cousins. I've got a sister as well. Not uncles, obviously. But yeah, it's important for me to see them be represented, just because they're some of the most powerful people in my life, and held me up and stuff like that. And just thinking about the future, and like I said before, having young girls, especially Black girls, who get the short end of the stick majority of the time, see themselves in a superhero, which they never really get. That's another rarity. So yeah, it's not like fully everything that we do is trying to tick a box, but it naturally comes out because there's no political barriers when we're making decisions creatively. There's not like, oh, we have to appease this person, or this has to be greenlit for this big corporation or whatever. Like every idea that we have is, if we're both comfortable with it, then we just kind of run with it. So, which is refreshing. And you'll see through the first few issues that the world isn't what you typically will see in a comic book, where everyone's obviously Caucasian or whatever. You'll majority of the faces in the book are Black, but that's obviously we're dealing with two Black protagonists. But there's more representation throughout, and yeah, it's just like why can't we? It's obviously set 50 years in the future, so why can't we start creating that visual of what it would be like if it was more just kind of equal across the board, after having so many comic books and so many superhero teams represented by white people?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel it's a very difficult line to toe, and I personally feel like Static Shock did a really good job of kind of like capturing that essence of, you know, the black community or the African American community, but like having to deal with a lot of like the white dynamics around them. And you know, they had a really powerful episode where Static's best friend's dad was a racist, and like how he had to deal with that, and how the friend had to deal with his dad being a racist. And it was really quite like startling, you know, yeah, to watch as a child. And I feel like a lot of times when it comes to bringing in diversity into storytelling, you get the one character, but then like you don't get anything else. You don't get like the family. For example, Hey Arnold, right?
Yeah.
You remember Gerald, but I don't
Yeah.
remember what his parents look like,
No, you never saw
right?
that.
It's difficult to fully relate or fully kind of humanize them when it's like they're just, you know, a solo person here for their you know, their 15 minutes and then they go. So I think that's a very important part that you're building here with the entire. There's got to be a better word for this, but the universe that you've built, where it's like focus on, you know, this black family and how they deal with other people, and likelihood is they're going to be face to face with more black people than white people because of their areas and stuff. So I think that's quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to how you build upon that.
Yeah, just very neutral and naturally. I think it's not, like I said, I think we're trying to shove anything down anyone's throat. Just writing environments and placing people of certain professions in front of the camera. That's not what you would typically associate with a certain race, potentially, you know, just like that. Or like putting up, you know, you'll see in the first issue there's a female Asian police commissioner, you know, like something that we haven't really seen as far as I know, you know. So it's just stuff like that, just very organically, just okay, cool, well, why can it not be that type of person doing it, you know? And it's fun. It's really fun to create a better world to a certain degree, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's one thing I felt. I didn't feel like you were trying to put across some, you know, subliminal political statement. I feel like you were just telling these people's stories. And it just so happened that, you know, they had to be black. They happened to be black, so it was a black perspective, but it wasn't, you know, like the black perspective, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I definitely get what you mean when it's like you're just telling a different story, something that you haven't seen hundreds and hundreds of times. So with Extraman, for those who haven't heard of you, how would you describe Extraman to them? Someone who might be familiar with the superhero world, or even is a casual, you know, just watch MCU in the movies. How would you describe Extraman to them?
So he's an ex-Olympic gold medalist gymnast who basically goes through a horrible incident where they lose his son and his ability to walk. And his beautiful wife is a Journey Trust, the genius robotics engineer, and creates a supersuit out of alien technology called the Extra, the exoskeletal xenomorphic tactical reconnaissance armor. So a lot of people again just think, oh, we just grabbed the name out of thin air and just said it, but there's reasoning behind everything. And yeah, he uses this suit to become Extraman, and obviously his adventures begin in, well, issue 1. We're about a few months into his kind of superhero escapades, and him figuring out kind of on the job new things as we go.
You do obviously get the origin of where the suit comes from in the first issue, but in terms of how it comes about, how he comes about being a superhero, you don't even, at this point, you don't even know how they met, you know. So there's a lot to cover.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, that's something I didn't really think about until you mentioned it. I think I'm definitely happier that you went with this style of storytelling when you kind of just drop us into the action, but you do enough to be like to do the world building, so we know how he got his powers, and there's enough on the table for us to be like, oh, I kind of want to know what else happened in the middle of this traumatic event, and now here. There's a lot of intrigue and mystique that you've built in the first issue.
And also, I don't like reading a superhero comic where there's no superheroing in it until the last page. It's like, why did I pick this up? Like, if we're just
That's a good
gonna
point.
watch EastEnders.
That's jokes. That is
Just
so
it.
true.
Why are we watching a whole like cool like I would just it's just it I just can't deal with it. Like, and a lot of indie creators start there and think they have to start there. Like, you really don't, bro.
Yep.
Honestly, like, get to why we're all here, and that's just the more interesting thing. Like, you get to click on the action like any movie would be. Otherwise, imagine it's. Do you know what film really annoyed me? Actually, it was like kind of like the Power Rangers. They're getting their powers for the whole film, and then they fight. They fight Rita in obviously the third act, but it's like it would have been so much more interesting if that happened in the first act, and then we're seeing them battle and lose and come back and with the Zords, and like it's just a just watching a whole action film where you're not actually there, or you're there watching what you didn't come to see. So.
Yep. And the thing is, you feel like that with anything in life, and I think people forget that. Like, it seems like if I cooked you a roast dinner and you ate the roast dinner, you then want to you then are happy. You're in your space, and you don't go. I don't want to show you bit by bit. Let's do the recipe. So let's get this out, and then you get one of these. You chop your thing. Like, why am I doing that? Let's give you this and go. That was amazing. Where did you get that? Oh, so this is how you. Not because you're leaving people with the want, the feeling is there now. You've already sparked that thing by starting with the product rather than trying to feed someone bit by bit ingredients, hoping they're going to stay long enough to get to the final product. It just doesn't make sense. Put it in front of them now, and then they can be like, "Oh no, I'm really into this. What is this?" Then you feel more people will eat something and then want to get the recipe for it to eat it again, than just get a recipe. Do you know what I mean? And never make that again. By the time they get to it, and feel like how long it was to actually make it, and it's like, oh, I'm over it now. Doesn't make sense.
That's a great analogy, to be fair. Because if you just show the recipe to someone, they might be like, oh, okay. Yeah. But they try it, they taste it, they like it, then they're like, okay, then I want to know how to make that myself because that was banging.
You want it again? You want it? Yeah, exactly that.
Sure. Absolutely. I didn't watch that Power Rangers movie, but I'm glad I didn't now.
I mean, if you wanna just for research purposes.
I might do after this,
Color descenders.
Well, that's a very good point, because it's like I get the thinking of the indie creators who are like, I have to tell the story chronologically because that's how I thought of it, and that makes sense. So you get to see the progression, but you have to think of it from the consumer's point of view. They're gonna lose interest.
You can be an amazing writer and obviously write the character so it's interesting, but me as a creator, I knew that I didn't want the first issue to be just black people, that a black guy just gets shot on paper in artwork form. Like, it's just like, get to the reason why he's a superhero and see the gadgetry and all the type of things that get me excited, and then you can just drip feed all of that later when we're locked in, because what this thing is about. The type of action you're going to get, the type of dialogue you're going to get. You can see the chemistry between them after the fact. You can see them kind of like crawling out of the tragedy, but still being lighthearted enough to do their jobs. So it just makes for a more, obviously we're always thinking of the future of Extraman as well. So even in movie form, like, we're not going to start with him riding with his steam in a car and blah, that stuff we haven't shown you yet, so
I mean, but you make very good points. Like, it is tough because this generation is also very like instant. Like, we want everything now. So it is very important to kind of give the consumer the hook to keep them interested, to want to know about the origin story. Like, for example, I think the Berserk manga does a really good job of this, where it doesn't start chronologically, but it starts off with the guy, slashing down some people at a bar, and you're like, oh, why is he missing an eye? Why does he have a cannon for a hand? Where did he get that big sword from? And then they drip feed the origin story, like, a few chapters in. So it is very interesting, that kind of approach, and I think that should be more regular. Like you want to hook the people in first, and then once they're locked, as he said, once they're locked in, then it's like, okay, I want to learn more about this character because I'm so invested, as opposed to we're gonna build this up and hope you maintain that interest. Like that Power Rangers film, 2 acts of no action.
Bro.
Yep.
I'm falling asleep.
You think of the big films that you do love, they all start with, like, if you've seen Deadpool vs Wolverine, it just starts full on action for the whole thing. Then they go, oh, let's take you back. Same thing. You start with like Endgame. You're starting in the ship where, you know, Hulk is fighting Thanos and like everyone's getting punched. Like it's starting with like, oh, you know, the certain films where there's like it could be a Fast and Furious or something, and they're starting with the race straight off the bat. There's fastest cars around the fastest corners, all like crazy camera work, and it's like you're locked in. You don't want to start in the garage and he's like putting the wheel on. You're like, no, it's just not the way, man. It's not the way we like, and we feel like it works. You know, it works the right way, and we've seen it in the things that we love as well. So that's what's getting us back to watch them again. You know.
You mentioned the future of Extraman, how you're thinking very far ahead. That's something I wanted to talk to you about, of course. So we met at Comic-Con a few years ago. I picked up the first issue from you both. Really liked it. I've seen that the second issue is out now, so I'm gonna have to go pick it up from your website. Again, you were at Comic-Con recently, so congratulations on all the attention and success you've gotten thus far.
Thanks, bro.
What is the immediate and then the long-term future? I know you spoke about movies, so there might be a XCU coming out or something like that, but tell me as much as you can, tell me about the plans for Extraman in the future.
The immediate future is the unveiling, the debut of issue 3, and that's literally just wrapping up those last pages, the writing and the drawing and the coloring and the inking and the blah blah blah. And that's just definitely the best looking issue that we've got so far. So that's exciting. Future wise, I would just say, you know, the whole reason why it looks the way it looks is because you know, one of our aspirations is for it to be animated. We want it to be either a series or a movie. Live action, I haven't really switched on to that concept as of yet. Obviously, I do encourage cosplay and all the rest of it or whatever. But in terms of seeing this moving, seeing these characters moving that I've drawn, that's what I want to see. So yeah, everything that you've seen from the big wigs, from the Marvels and the DCs, like there's no reason why Extraman can't stand up there and do everything that he needs to do, you know, merch for boys and girls. Obviously we've got Journey's side of things as well. So yeah, it's just about inspiring people and them seeing that it can come from just an idea from South London, you know, to be in the big Hollywood stages and silver screen and all the rest of it. But yeah, I would say Comic-Con on October, animated series in the far future, or I don't know, sooner than later, if we get some kind of investment license until Netflix, whatever, then that's obviously a blessing. But yeah, I'm just really focused on getting these issues out and really just making sure that we're on job in terms of just output.
Yep, for sure. And we've also we took 2 years before issue 1 dropped, and that's because we're making sure that we understand where we want it to go and what that looks like, and we're creating other characters and Bibles and story arcs, so it's well planned out and thought out into the 50 issues and above. And we're just trying to make sure with each issue that we deliver the story that we want to deliver with the right journey for the characters in the right order, and just get to use all those ideas over time and make sure that they're exactly how we want them to be, because it's easy to run away with all the ideas you come up with and get carried away with 1,000 characters, which we have done, but in the right way, like making sure like what matters now, you know, what story needs to be told now, what characters matter with where we're at in the story, and then putting that into the issue, because we want the animated series. I'm sure we want the movie in the future and all the live action stuff, but the main thing is to make sure that the source material for people to read is there and holds the heart and the story, and like I said, the character designs and how everything looks is right there for you to see. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be just picked out of thin air. And even if it is needing more stuff, we have that in our own, you know, Bible and stuff that we've already created in terms of characters and stuff. So yeah, it's just rolling with the punches as we go and pushing it out there to everyone. So yeah, kindredcomics.co.uk. Issue 1 and 2 now, issue 3 in October, which is super exciting.
Yeah, of course it is. Super close as well. Yeah, once again, I do want to say thank you so much for coming on and being so cool. Congratulations on all your success and wishing you many more along the way. You kind of already did it, but if anyone wants to know where they could pick up Extraman issues, where they can see you, how they can support you in other ways, please let them know how they can find you. Promote yourselves.
Yeah, it's kindredcomics.co.uk to buy the issues and merch and all the rest of it, everything Extraman, and kind of gives you an idea of, you know, where we've come from and the team and what we're trying to do. So yeah, that's the official website, and obviously our socials. You can find obviously via Extraman on Instagram and Twitter and all the rest of it. So yeah, basically
follow us and come down to Comic-Con and see us. Do you know what I mean? Come down, meet us, chat to us, ask questions about the comic. You know, that we want to get to know the people that are in love with the comic and what they want to be seeing from it. Do you know what I mean? So come down and check it out. Check out the stall, all the bits and bobs we have, and yeah, can't wait to just share more and hear people's thoughts. Want to hear your thoughts on issue 2 as well once you've had a read.
We'll do.
For sure.
Right, of course, yes. So make sure you go and follow them all and check out Kindred Comics wherever you can. We'll put all the links in the description as well as our own, so you can support us and check out other episodes that we put out. But until next time, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. We'll see you on the next Streamcast.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you for having us, man.